This is my BMW M5 competition, and it was in a pretty bad accident. And I bought it because I've always wanted a BMW M5, but could never afford one. Luckily, this one was super cheap. The only catch was I now need to fix it in order to get it back on the road. And I am not a mechanic of any kind. We've already taken off all the damaged parts, and sadly learned from the previous owner that there's engine damage, which means we needed to drop the entire motor out in order to get it fixed properly. With the engine out, we can now start focusing on this. All of the structural damage from the accident, or at least what we hope is all the structural damage. Luckily, BMW sells these components individually. So you can see where it actually ends. That's one section. This to here is one section. This to here is one section. And that makes it a bit easier to repair. Older cars are all one piece frame, and if it gets bent, well, you're either pulling it back into place or the whole thing is toast. Here, you can replace it in segments, and that's what we're gonna do today. But the only problem is I've never done any of this before. As per usual, we're flying a bit blind. But there's only one way to learn to do things, and that's by trying. Well, there's probably more than one way to learn how to do things, but that's the way that I prefer to learn how to do things. So today, we are going to be taking off all this structural piece here that is clearly crunched in, and we're going to attempt, after that, put the new piece in. Step number one to getting these structural components off is getting the old seam sealer off. You can see that's what all this is. It's a little hard to see because it kind of looks like welds or metal, but that's like an actual seam sealer. And we need to get that off. And the best way that I think we can get that off is with a wire wheel on a drill. So we're gonna try that. I have no safety glasses, or at least I can't find any, but I could find these. These are better than nothing. And they'll protect my eyes, which is important. I want to be able to see. But now I also look drippy as... We should be good to go. Let's give this a shot. There are three main types of adhesive holding on the piece of metal. And to access them, we first have to strip back all of the seam sealer. The main job of the seam sealer is to protect the fasteners that hold everything together and keep water and dirt out of the structural components, preventing rust and damage. It's also really thick and annoying to remove, but we're slowly getting through it. Now we've revealed those screws. They're one-time use BMW specialty screws, and I do not have the tool to get them out. But I think you could do the classic cut a line in them, or we can just bang them with a hammer sideways and a screwdriver, and we hope that they come out. So let's give that a shot. And then hopefully we can get this piece at least detached. I've also grinded quite a lot of this paint away. We'll have to repaint that, but it cleaned it up. With all the seam sealer off of the lower portion, we can start to actually figure out how to detach the structural component. Now, just a year ago, when we really started working on cars, doing this would be super intimidating. But after all of the strip bolts we've had to deal with on the Porsche and Aston Martin, this feels pretty easy. And although these are some of the most annoying bolts I've ever had to deal with, slowly but surely, they're coming off. The bolts are now out, so we should be able to just bang this thing out. Well, we need to drill two of the other bolts out, but I mean, you get the point. It should be fine. Let's give it a shot. I think this is how it works. One structural component has been removed from the vehicle. Sweet. Just like this part here, we're gonna get the seam sealer off of here, the seam sealer off the bottom, and then there's a few spot welds. So let's get into it. So the way this is mounted in here is it sort of just actually slides into this piece, just a few millimeters, well, probably an inch, most likely. And then they just weld it on and then seam sealer over it. So I'm just reverse engineering that work. We're getting close. I have a little bit of seam sealer to get off on the bottom, and then we should be able to grind all this off and hopefully get this piece removed. And then all we gotta do is put the new piece in. This is seeming not so bad. However, there's always the chance that when we go to put the new one in, nothing lines up properly, and that means that something else is bent. Either this is bent, which is a real pain if that's bent, or this is the chassis leg. That could be bent. So there's still time for drama. But in the meantime, I am going to get the rest of the seam sealer off, and let's see if we can at least remove this component. With the seam sealer fully gone, all that's holding on this piece are 4 rivets on the bottom, which we can drill out pretty easily. A couple more on top, and then the spot welds that we need to grind down. With those taken care of, we have to deal with what is actually holding the metal together, the panel bond. When it's hardened, panel bond basically acts like a weld between the two metals, and it takes some serious strength to separate it. No matter how hard I hammer, push, or pull on this piece, it just doesn't want to budge. After a bit of inspecting, it looks like we missed a rivet. And with that rivet exposed and drilled out, we should now be able to remove this piece and finally get ready to replace it with a new one.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, what is all that, man? I don't like that. Oh, but I like this. Oh. Man, I have gone through like war, bro. I just went to war with this piece, and I won. That's why you never give up, kids. I might be breathing in chemicals, have metal shavings in my arm, sweating. My forearms are never gonna work right again. But we won this battle.
Piece a bit mangled, as you can see, but it's nothing that a little flattened job can't do.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about this hole that I put into the body. We have the correct structural piece. Well, a little bit more than just the correct structural piece. And that's because I was actually sent a different one that was just the one piece that we took off. But it turns out they cut it way too short, and it wasn't right. These are really hard to find because BMW won't sell you structural components. So you need to go to eBay and get them. And some guy from a 530i had this. It's a little more than we need, but it'll work. We're gonna now have to do everything we did to the car on there to get it off. Yes, it's white, we'll spray paint it black. Problem solved. And yes, it is from a 530i, but they use the exact same piece on the M5. Cost savings. It's a beautiful thing. So let's get that off now. Oh my gosh, time to do this all over again. It should be a bit easier to do this the second time around. I already know where all the rivets and welds are, so really the most time consuming part of this is just going to be getting all of the seam sealer off and dealing with the panel bond. It's really nice to be able to move the entire assembly around to access all the weird crevices. And with all the rivets and welds removed, I should be able to take off the piece I need. With this finally removed from our gigantic piece down there, we can start to figure out how to get it back into the car and make this structurally sound. The first order of business of doing that is making sure that we have a clean mating surface for all of the new parts to go to. So we're gonna clean this up real quick, clean this up, and then we'll hopefully see how this looks in there. And I'm scared. Now, we've never done anything like this before, and if it isn't clear, we really don't know what we're doing. But that's why we started this channel, to learn how to work on cars together. And the best way to do that is to dive in head first. According to the label on the seam sealer, it adheres well to painted surfaces. And fortunately for us, I wanted to paint everything black anyways. With the surfaces prepped, we can spray a few layers of paint on, and once those cure, we're ready to finally install the component. This paint job is clean, bro.
Wow.
That's all dried up. That looks better than OEM.
Like it never happened.
Like it never happened.
We should do this for a living.
We're great at this.
We do.
This is a symbol of how the rest of it's gonna go. It's gonna go great.
I think this is a symbol of how the rest of it's gonna go.
Yeah, that's about right. We still gotta get this engine brought to someone who can take care of it for us.
If anyone knows, let us know.
Definitely let us know. A little VIN reveal.
Oh, that looks good.
That looks nice.
Yeah.
That's how you know. That's our little like Banksy piece right there.
Yeah.
Call us Banksy, honestly, because this thing.
We graffiti artists, you're thumbprinting them up.
Oh yeah, they're a little tacky. We should probably let it sit for.
Yeah. Leave it next to the other one. I want to show these ladies and gentlemen.
So this new one, well, new to us.
Yeah.
This is
Same orientation. Oh my God, you can really see that this thing took a lot of the accident compared to this thing, which is new.
I would actually, yeah, no, that's the right way.
That's the same way you got it.
Same way. It doesn't look like
It looks
is.
significantly smaller
It
than
sort
that.
of caved in on itself a bit.
Yeah.
And then we also, of course, can't forget about this piece that's supposed to be down there.
Yeah, that's good.
So, you know, if anyone wants all this, I'm willing to give it at a very good price.
Yeah, if you're rebuilding a 5 Series and you need not that front part, but the strut tower part.
Yeah, I got you.
Which would be weird if you didn't need that part, but you needed this part. But
hey, if you could get that somewhere else, and you can get this from me and Will.
yeah, we're cool guys. We need the money.
Yeah, this is all yours.
We're going
for the
broke
low
right
price.
now.
The low price of not much money. This needs to be able to slide in here. What are we hitting on?
Do you need a hand?
Not yet. I want to test fit this. And then decide what we need to do. It's very challenging to get it in. Because of the way you have to remove everything, sometimes the parts can get a bit bent. So to make sure everything fit back together, we need to use a bit of brute force and ignorance. Once we can get everything to fit together somewhat nicely, we can start to properly attach everything. Starting with the panel bond. Like I said before, panel bond is basically like welding the two panels together with plastic. The panel bond we're using has a 60-minute set time before it's complete. So we have to be pretty efficient with getting everything put together so we don't mess it all up. With the panel bond spread out and the piece somewhat in place, we now have to quickly install all of the rivets so that the panel bond sets while the piece is exactly where it's supposed to be. I've never used a rivet machine before, but it's actually pretty fun. And aside from having to drill out some of the holes so the rivet is properly in place, it's not super difficult. By some miracle, we have it now on. We have to let the panel bond cure. It's not fully technically attached yet because we have to do 2 spot welds up here, and then obviously we have to do the seam sealer that we took off.
Yeah.
So, other than that, it's on. We have a tape measure. I'm going to check from down here.
That's about, what, 8.5?
8.5.
What are you seeing?
8.5.
Oh!
Call me and Will master mechanics because I think we nailed that.
I think so too. Honestly, man,
It was scary.
all things considered, this is on there.
This is on there. I mean, we didn't do everything correctly.
No, we did, if anyone's asking.
It's perfect. And also, I'm so glad we painted it because now it honestly blends right in.
It looks like the same as the other side, basically.
The next day.
Now that this is on the car, nice and sturdy, all of our panel adhesive is dried, we need to now do the 2 spot welds that are up here. I have actually, surprisingly, welded once or twice before on a very crappy welder. We actually have a decent gas welder. Never used a gas welder, so hopefully we are safe today. But first, the major thing that I learned from welding the few times that I have is it's all in the prep work. We need to make sure this part's sanded down, but we gotta sand the other surface. And then we should heat it up. That's a good thing that you're supposed to do before you weld. And then should be easy. Blah, 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 panel, adhesive. We're experts. So, first things first, let's give it a
That was really
little-
convincing.
Yeah, no, I'm a very convincing expert. I'm a doctor too, did you know that? But we're gonna
He is
just-
not a doctor legally. We are required to let you know he's not a doctor.
We're gonna give this a little sand down and get it nice and good. Little alcohol wipe down, clean your surface off.
Is that a thing? For
It's
welding?
always good to do for anything, I feel like.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just to have a clean working surface. I don't know if it really helps, but in my head it helps. It can't hurt, right? I have very minimal welding skills, but fortunately for me, these welds are gonna be covered by seam sealer anyways, so they don't have to be the prettiest. With a gas MIG welder like this one I'm using, getting the settings right is super important. Through a bit of trial and error, I think I have the settings good enough to where everything should be solidly connected. And with that done, we can get to the final step, the seam sealer.
Welder cleaning up the welds.
Okay, the second weld was a lot better than the first weld. Those are some of the worst welds I've ever seen in my life, though, regardless. Do not come after that. Those are horrible, and I know they're bad. But look, to be honest with you, doesn't matter too much how good they are, as long as they're good enough. And the second one's good enough. The first one is just gonna have to do.
It's all right there.
It's just like kind of a mush of metal, but
That's all you need.
it's already held on by 17 different things, and we're about to make it held on by more. So it should be okay. With the welds out of the way, we have to scuff the surface up one last time before we can use the seam sealer. Like we said, the main point of the seam sealer is to protect all of the different forms of adhesive we have holding everything together, and to prevent stuff from rusting. So it's definitely important that we get this right if we want everything to last. It's turning out that applying seam sealer is actually not that easy, so this may not be the prettiest thing I've ever done. More importantly though, everything should be protected. So now we can let the sealer harden and come back to check on it tomorrow. Hopefully it all works out. We're back with the M5. It's been a day. We needed to wait and let the seam sealer sort of do its thing. And now we can see how our very first structural repair is holding up. The seam is sealed. It's not pretty by any means. Oh my gosh, that turns rock solid.
Yeah, same with this stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. And now we have put something back on the car instead of taking it off, and we have successfully done our very first structural repair.
It's uncrashed.
It's crazy that we somehow managed to do this, because never in my life would I have thought I would be tackling a project like this on a car. A year ago, we were doing nothing of the sort. We had just bought our Porsche, we hadn't done a single modification to it, and now we're fixing very expensive, crashed M5s. We did it. We did do it. We did do it. Check this out. Hold it for a sec. Look at this. We moved the entire car. That's crazy.
We still have to deal with that though.
What?
The engine.
Oh,
Subscribe for that.
Subscribe.